Hello and welcome back to the channel Airbus. What's it doing now? And welcome to this heads up briefing on descent and energy management. I'm currently working on this at the moment. I hope to have it out in the next few days. I've had lots of people actually ask me for this, and it kind of makes sense really, given we've got quite a few cadets, if you like, that prior to the lockdown had just about made it to the line training portion of their training, or perhaps had managed to get part of the way through, or maybe even completed it, and then the lockdown happened and haven't been near an aircraft since. And there'll be lots of support packages available through your company to assist with that. And of course, once we return to some flying and some lines of flying begin to open again, then much of that line training will then return. So I think people are concerned about this, particularly from the early stages of their training, and getting their head around energy management. So, and also it's a good refresher for those of us that, whilst relatively experienced with the Airbus, again haven't been near an aircraft for a while. So it's probably worth reminding ourselves on some of the techniques that are available to us to assist. So just to begin with, I'll start with an overview of what descent and energy management really means. We'll look at the different FMS standards. Now, I don't intend to go into these in a huge amount of detail because it depends if you've got FMS standards 1 or 2, and the presentations between those look slightly different with profile latching, etc. But I think if I went into all that detail, I think the video would go on forever, and it kind of moves away from what we're trying to achieve here, which is a broad overview on energy management in the profile for our descent and approach. So that's what I'm trying to achieve. So you'll have to bear in mind that if you're an FMS 1 or FMS 2 standard, that the presentations and what I talk about will differ slightly, and hopefully your company will give you some documentation, some supporting material to help you understand the differences between the two presentations. It largely doesn't matter in the big scheme of things. Something else to note, of course, is that every approach is different. So the briefing that I'm going to give you here is very much a generic one, just to highlight various elements of the approach, whether it be open descent or geometric, and how we use the FMGC to help with predictions, and the importance of having the correct information in the box. And what I don't want people to take away from this is that what I brief you here, you can apply to every single approach, because of course we're in a very fluid environment, and things will be slightly different depending on what approach you have on the day. But again, it's a broad overview and to help consolidate an understanding of what you're seeing in the FMGC and how that relates to the actual profile. And leading on from that, then, what I really want to make very clear here is, and as I put it in the pretext in the video, that you must make sure that whatever your training department give you in terms of supporting material for your descent and energy management, and of course what your line trainer tells you, is your primary reference. And that's really important to take home here, because what I'm going to give you is what I've taken out of the FCOM and FCTM in terms of guidance, and also my tips and my guidance on some of the techniques that I give to my trainees in helping them manage their energy for their approach. But it's not uniform, and it's not if you like, gospel, 1 for every approach and 2 for every airline. So it's purely my take on it. So you must listen to your trainer, and whatever he tells you is what you go with, basically. Okay, it's no good saying that bloke off of Airbus, what's it doing now, told me to do this, because that's just not going to wash. So what we're going to move on to then is looking at tools for managing the descent. So we'll have a look at the FMS and the details of what the presentations look like. We'll look at constraints, whether they are at or above, whether the FMGC is looking through them. onto the next constraint, and we'll also have a look at the effect of wind and making sure that we've got a correct wind profile in the FMGC. We'll look at the geometric segment as well as the idle segment. The idle segment being typically from top of drop or top of descent, and then we'll look at the geometric segment and the effect of wind and how the aircraft manages that profile, how we maintain and regain the profile, and some cautions here, a bit of a government health warning when intercepting your profile from above. Say, for example, air traffic control have given you a late descent, and some of the considerations and how we might manage that, and the risks of managing a descent from approaching your profile from above or from descending late. That's quite an important one to grasp. I'll take you then basically from the cruise down to the clearance limit. That part of it, actually, as long as we've got the FMGC correctly programmed and we understand what the aircraft's trying to do, then that's the relatively straightforward part. But it's actually from the clearance limit from where the air traffic control will then likely give you vectors, unless there's some sort of RNAV transition, for example. Come on to those a little bit later on. That's where we then have to interpret the distance and our altitude and our speed and energy management for ourselves largely. So we'll take you then from that transition onto the ILS for the profile, and then how we go about configuring. So just a typical generic ILS, where effectively we're dumped and left to our own energy management from an FMGC perspective. We'll look at some tips to help managing shortcuts. I know that that's a topic of discussion at the moment with air traffic control and the airspace being very quiet. You're much more likely to see these shortcuts now, and that's really for a separate subject and how we manage that and threat and error management. I know it's come up in a few safety topics which I've covered recently, so you can review those at your leisure, but ultimately there will be shortcuts available, and I'll talk about Geneva as one of those places where that's fairly commonplace even when we're relatively busy. So yeah, looking at Geneva, for example, and how we might use the secondary flight plan to help us for predictions to manage that shortcut. So I'll go over that in a little bit of detail as well. So then using the 3 times table in terms of how to manage our altitude, in terms of the altitude that we need to lose for the platform altitude, what calculations we might make in order to account for the speed, and some other situational awareness tools that we might use, such as TCAS, where other aircraft are being vectored, just to give you a good overview then of your track mileage. We have a look at the energy circle when we're in heading, which we typically will be heading or track at that point as well. And then we'll look at the ILS profile, where we would select flat, where we would select the gear. And again, these aren't set in stone, and there are certain SOP requirements with that. And again, you'd need to refer to your airline for that as well. So that should be out in the next couple of days, and I hope to have something to present to you, by the end of the week or perhaps the weekend. But this is also an opportunity for you, if you've got any questions or if you have any suggestions, or indeed any areas of the management, profile management that concern you in particular, then please either put the questions in the comments below here, or you can then go over to Facebook at Airbus What's It Doing Now, and you can message me privately there, and I'll try and integrate that into the briefing for you. Good. Well, thanks very much for tuning in, and I look forward to talking to you very soon. In the meantime, keep safe and keep the place spinning. Well, thank you very much for tuning in to Airbus What's It Doing Now, and I really hope you enjoyed the briefing. If you did like it, then please remember to click the like button. It really helps the channel out quite a lot. And do remember to visit the Facebook page at Airbus What's It Doing Now. All the videos are posted there. You can leave comments, and also you can message me privately if you want to do so. If you are able to and you would like to, you can also support the channel at patreon.com/Airbus What's It Doing Now, and also at buymeacoffee.com/Airbus Whiskey India Delta November. Thanks for tuning in. See you again soon.